Buongiorno.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome to this 3 days for the European project Shaping Fair Cities. We worked together over the last years with national and international partners in localizing the Agenda 2030. And we are here today to share the outcomes of this important project. Today we will focus in municipalities and local territorial municipalities and communities. Tomorrow is for international partners, and Friday the final conference on the topics we have been dealing with within the project. Thank you very much for your participation. We wanted to create a blended event, so we are here partially online in a streaming form. I would like to welcome Mrs. Elly Schlein, Vice President of the region Emilia-Romagna. Thank you very much. Good morning, and thank you for being here with us for this important event. It's a celebration, it's a way of sharing the outcomes of the project that we developed all together with different municipalities, and I would like to thank all the mayors working with us. It has been a difficult year due to the COVID, but you were able not only to develop this project, but also to localize them into a new reality and to stress the importance of Agenda 2030 that was approved in the United Nations many years ago. And I was there while working at the European Parliament in the General Assembly, and Ban Ki-moon pronounced very important words and said that this is the most important declaration of interdependence in history. What does it mean? It means that the innovation character of this agenda is intertwined with the challenges fighting against poverty, gender equality, the access to services such as health and education, and these challenges are strictly intertwined with the climate change that is ongoing, and we know that the countries paying the price for climate changes are the poorest ones, and they are less contributor to this climate change. And so biodiversity protection as well, the protection of natural resources, the ability of ecosystems to generate once again. So Agenda 2030 collects all the important topics of our time, and these challenges are even more crucial after the pandemic. Over these 3 days, we have webinars, workshops, and panels, and we want to deal with very important topics. They are at the heart of the Emilia-Romagna region. First of all is fighting against violence, against discrimination, to enhance gender equality. There's still a lot to do to enhance all women, girls, and it's an important contribution to fight against violence as well. There's still a lot to do. As for the representation of women in the places, in the decision-making venues, which is a very important topic. And then we will deal with the migration issue. And last but not least, we will also talk about ecological transition, sustainability. What does it mean having our municipalities, our territories more resilient and sustainable, as it is stated in one of the SDG of this agenda. We are here, we are with you, we will support you, thanks to Mirella, Orlandi, Caterina Brancaleoni, Francesco, all the Emilia-Romagna region's partners and colleagues, citizens who really took part in the creation and development of this project. And when I see these videos, I'm really excited. I get moved because the Agenda 2030 is included in our conversation, in our dialogue. 1 week ago, I took part in a presentation of girls and boys here in Bologna. They disseminated the cities with boxes with wonderful future ideas and hints in order to improve and enhance the lives of people. Yesterday in the Emilia-Romagna Region Assembly, we talked about the pathway we want to develop in order to build up a regional strategy to develop the 2030 agenda. It's not just an extra document. What is the meaning of this strategy? It has two fundamental roles. On the one side, it's going to take a snapshot of the positioning that we are occupying thanks to ASVIS. So we will see what is the position of Emilia-Romagna compared to the 17 goals for sustainable development. And it will look at the future by creating and giving us some important indicators in order to understand how we can measure the progresses we want to reach, and in particular the impact, the pact for climate and employment that has been signed with the entire system, universities, municipalities, trade unions, the third sectors, and for the first time some environmental associations like Legambiente. So that pact is now in line with the 2030 agenda because we want to keep very high our ambition, because it's what we want to do in order to implement these 17 goals for sustainable development. If we decided to sign this pact in a very difficult moment like this year with pandemics, it's because we know that the best strategy cannot be, imposed from the top. We decided to create it hand in hand because we can reach these 17 goals if we all play our important roles in society. So thanks for being here with us and sharing with us the project you are conducting, you are developing. Thank you very much, Mrs. Elly Schlein, Vice President of the region, for the political support that the region is giving to all the activities we are carrying out. Now let's move to the first speech talking about climate change. I would like to invite my colleague Carlo Cacciamani. He will talk about climate change and the policies adopted in Emilia-Romagna. Thank you. Good morning. Okay, I will keep my mask on. Good morning, and thank you very much for your invitation and for this important project. I would like to thank you for the involvement of the Arpae agency, which is the climate environmental agency in the Emilia-Romagna region. We created this agency to control our climate ecosystem, both for what happened until today and for the creation of future climate perspective. I would like to talk about this issue. So it's a very simple presentation. We will focus on what we have observed until today and what we are expecting for the future. So the climate change is not a global topic, but it's also a local issue. And climate change is not just a scientific topic, but it's something that is wider, that it has effects on people's life, on the next generations, and their life depends on what we can organize for all of them in the future. Some remarks. So this is an observatory, a climate observatory, because the Emilia-Romagna region adopts its own strategy of mitigation and adaptation for climate change. There is a regional forum. There are some action plans for sustainable energy and climate. There is a metropolitan plan. For example, we have a plan for Bologna, and there are some general urban plans and some municipal adaptation plans. For example, in the region, apart from Bologna, which adopted this plan, there are other cities like Reggio Emilia and even other cities which use the observation taken by our observatory in order to develop their own action plans. A couple of words on the climate study. We need to collect studies, we need to collect historical information, because there is a difference in the weather and the climate. Weather is what you observe by looking outside the window. The climate cannot be observed out of the window, because it's a statistical property. It's what you expect to have. So when you talk about climate change, you talk about a potential change in what you expect. So our wardrobe depends on climate, not on weather, just to make a distinction. And we created every year a climate atlas of Emilia-Romagna. Over the last days, we produced the last version for last year, and it represents in a schematical way the climate situation in our region. And we drafted tables, diagrams, data processing, and this is the scientific language representing this situation. So there is an hydroclimate report. To do so, we should have a monitoring system that is really hard to keep, because all weather data taken from weather stations must be controlled. They can be defective at some times, so you need to be sure that the data collected is good data. Otherwise, the climate indicators are not fully representative of the real situation. Observed climate. You see a comparison in these graphs of the global situation in the world. You see the different diagrams and the situation in our region, in our country. What you can spot in a very clear way is that if we consider the trend from the 60s until today, the first 20 years from the 60s to the 80s, the region climate remained stable. Here you see a change in temperature, so it means that the difference in the temperature of a specific year, and then there is the deduction of the average temperature over 30 years. So if this anomaly is close to zero, it means that the climate of that year is close to the climate study. Otherwise, if it is far away from the average, it means that there is a variation. So starting from the 80s, there has been a peak in temperatures. So starting from the 60s, there is no year that is colder compared to what happened in the first 20 years. So we are already living in a modified climate situation for many reasons. The first time is that, considering the rapidity in this change, reasons are anthropocentric, so they are linked to the human presence, because we increase the greenhouse gases. There is a higher release in the atmosphere, carbon emissions. So this creates a heat surplus of energy coming to the Earth. On the one side, this is good because we can have an average temperature around 15 degrees and not minus 20. Unfortunately, this greenhouse effect got bigger and bigger in a very quick way, so in an unsustainable way, even to be able to react to these conditions. Just to show you some indicators, this is the hydroclimate balance, so the difference between rain and evaporation. So you see, for example, bottom right, you see some columns, the blue ones, this is a positive data. So it rains more than the evaporation in Emilia-Romagna. So 25, 30 years, over the last 30 years, we have more red columns and yellow. So it means that there is a higher evaporation compared to rain. So even if the rain did not modify their percentage, but since the temperature got higher and higher, soils lose water, so there is this evaporation effect, and therefore this decreases the content in water. So we, in Emilia-Romagna, could run the risk of having a desertification problem. So here you see in red evaporation, the blue lines rains. So you see there is there are peak ups and downs in rain, but you see the increase in the temperature. And the difference between these two elements, you have this graph on the right. And over the last year, we had negative peaks. So it means that we had a magnification of this effect. So by having a decrease in water content, what is the impact on agriculture, for example, or in water management, water resource management? So just, figure out how these two aspects can be so important. So impacts are recorded everywhere in the world at European, Mediterranean level. In the Mediterranean region where we live is highly at risk, and it is called a hot spot at global level, and even some uncertainties for what is going to be in the future, so reduced compared to other regions in the world. So what we can expect in this area, so hotter summers and less rain, but this does not mean less extreme events, because it's almost a paradox. But ironically, and this is a peculiar characteristic of the Mediterranean area that is not visible in Northern Europe countries, so if we have a reduction in rain, in particular during summers, when it's going to rain in a very robust and quick way. So, for example, with the flash flood effect, and so hydrological problems. I always repeat this, so less rain, but when it rains more. This is kind of a pun on words, but that's the reality. And so water resources, if I had to say one thing, water can represent the problem number one. We cannot live without water. We can live without petrol. We cannot live without water. So this is a problem that is really strong, for example, in the migration origin countries, and climate change maybe is not the cause, but is one of the causes, increasing the issues in that area. They increase the conflict situation, because if such an important resource, decreases in quantity, then you have the emergency of conflicts, and so therefore they cause population to flee these areas, and they are linked in our regions with conflicts in front of a judge in court because you would like to have all the water for yourself, but then there is a governance that must be ensured. Unfortunately, when there is diminished resources, then the conflictual situation might increase. This is not Oklahoma. This is close to Modena. A tornado F3 size, not only in Emilia-Romagna, it hit other Italian regions, 30 million euros of damages. So just to give you an idea, strong wind, trucks were just elevated and, thrown away. I went to this area after the tornado and I was shocked. So just one event. Of course, we cannot say climate change is this event, but when you have an increase in this number of events, and then of course you have to start wondering that maybe something is happening at climate level. So we had river floods. This is the Palma Flood dating back to 2014. After 1 year, we had another flood in the Nura River. So very, very rapid and intense rain. And then we said water management. We had different drought situation over the last decade. This was, for example, the situation in agriculture, crops damaged. The situation was repeated in 2017. Then in 2019, the situation went slightly better because it started to rain. But you have floods on the one side caused by intense events, drought caused by lack in rainfall and an increase in temperature causing evaporation, and then you have drought. If this situation is repeated, and unfortunately we think there will be more events, we will have problems. So, and I'm concluding by thinking about the future. In order to carry out some analysis for the future, we have to monitor this phenomenon, cryosphere, biosphere as well, because the climate system is complex and it's made up by all these subsystems interacting the one with the other by exchanging energy and mass. So, to depict future scenarios, we have to simulate the behavior of these systems, and by analyzing some forcing, they are, for example, the greenhouse gases. So we can include in the simulation models different levels of GHG releases depending on the different economic scenarios that the world is going to set up. And then you have the Paris Treaty and then Kyoto Treaty and so on and so forth. So all these responses from an economic point of view and a decision-making point of view has a counterparty in pollution, in GHG emissions, and you obtain different responses. If we include in our future model the so-called business as usual model, so we don't do anything, everything will continue like this. At the end of the century, there will be an increase in the Earth temperature by 5 degrees and not just 1 degree as it is expected in the Paris Treaty. But we have to commit ourselves. Every single player could be citizens, communities, industries, In particular, I would like to say in the Western countries that they largely cause this condition. It's not the African country which had a great impact on the carbon emissions. It's more due to the industrialized countries and then the emerging countries like China, for example. But we have to commit ourselves and to improve the situation. Of course, these scenarios representing the current climate, but with an expectation in the future, must also be adapted to our territory. And this is my last slide. I would like to show you what is our expectation in Emilia-Romagna. We are not referring to the worldwide situation. We are focusing on our region and, of course, a smaller scale. But the signal that we obtained is pretty clear. So over the period 2020-2050, we will have an increase in temperature compared to the climate 1970s-2000. You see the red bars are always higher compared to the blue bars, and this is a clear sign. In particular, over summer, the situation is pretty clear from a statistical point of view. You see on the right, you have the graph concerning rainfall, but during spring and summer, it might rain less, and so since temperature goes up and rain goes down, we will have the water resource management problems that I was mentioning before with all the impact. So on the left, you have the temperature Gauss curve of the climate as observed until today. So you have a peak and you have a temperature. You see the dotted curves are the future climate. So it represents the probability curve of temperature, and it's switching to the right, so swifting to the right. So over the 70s, and we might thought, you know, of an exceptional heat, 38 degrees. Today, this temperature is a normal temperature. So what we judge today as normal, 25, 30 years ago, it was exceptional. And we have to understand this because we have to live with a different climate. When I was 18, the climate was different, and my daughter, who is 26, has to deal with a different climate. So the behaviors leading my life at that time, of course, are different compared to the behaviors that our next generation is going to adopt. Thank you very much.
Grazie.
Thank you very much to Mr. Cacciamani for this comprehensive presentation, which underlined the importance of the environment in our cities. As you know, our project is called Shaping First Cities, so it aims at building inclusive societies. What do I mean? I mean that we aim at paying attention to people, first and foremost, then the environment, of course, and we aim at finding the right way to have a balance with the environment. We aim at paying attention to climate change as well. So thank you very much, Carlo, for this highly important presentation. Thank you once again. Let's move on to the three panels we have organized. As you may know, we have subdivided the projects that the municipalities of the region have organized. So there are three panels, one on gender equality, the other one on migration, and last but not least, the panel on the environment. So three main focuses of the Shaping First Cities project, and also three topics that we tried and dwell on over the last months. As for the first panel, it is made up of Unione, Rubicone, Mare, Comune di Cavriago, Comune di Ravenna, so the Municipality of Ravenna or Cavriago, and the Union of Rubicone and Mare, so the Rubicone area, with the video to start with. So let's introduce the Rubicone area, so Unione dei Comuni Rubicone Mare, the president and the mayor of San Mauro Pasqui Municipality, Luciana Garbugli, and two collaborators, Philippe Venturi, the photographer, and also from the Between Association, Magosata. My Dear is the name of this project, and as the mayor, Luciana Garbuglia, will be explaining, is an area where a high percentage of women are present, and they worked on photography and on gender. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for this opportunity you gave us as a municipality. Our union is made up of 9 municipalities, so we are a structured territory. We are close to the sea. It's an attractive area because a number of people actually come to this area because of the shoe factory, because of tourism. As you may know, the Forlì-Cesena province plays a high role in this respect, so we offer jobs to a high percentage of women. And this is why it is, quite easy to attract this target. What about this project, My Dear? Well, we tried and give a voice to women. Normally, women deal with caregiving, in particular when we deal with foreign women. And so we tried and open our eyes. We tried and give voice to women by means of photography. It is a peculiar tool. Savignano sul Rubicone is actually the town of photography, so to say. And so we tried and use this tool in order to pay attention to women, to pay attention to gender differences. It's a peculiar look. It's a way of looking at what people did during the pandemic. So it's a very peculiar point of view, as I said. We tried and tell how migrant women, because we mainly attract migrant women, well, we tried and see how they interpreted this pandemic, our places, their job, their way of being within society. In my opinion, this is highly important, so as to give women the opportunity to express themselves, to play a role within a cultural network. During the pandemic, we lack culture. We missed the opportunity to stay together, to do culture together. So this gave us the opportunity to stay together. This project enabled women to stay together, to go out from the houses, and it helped us as well to have a different look, a different point of view, and a different attention paid to women. We managed to fight against prejudices that sometimes exist with respect to women. We managed to meet. It was hard, I must say. It wasn't easy at all. But during these meetings, we did something great because we paved the way to future projects. We had the opportunity to share our views and to think about future projects. So, to go back to my idea, while this project was built together by 9 municipalities, we cooperated with local associations, so between, in particular, cooperated with a professional photographer, but not only. Our ASP from the Rubicone area also played a major role, and so we built up some networks, and this is, in my opinion, the good starting point. We have to start building networks. We have to start fighting against prejudices. We have to start working together so that women can go out from the houses, go out from the families, and do something different in their daily lives so that they can feel that there's something existing outside their houses. There are people who can help them. There are people who are willing to listen to them. So this is important, and I'd like to thank each and every person playing a role in this project, and in particular I'd like to thank the Emilia-Romagna region because they actually made it possible to do this experience. What about the results? Well, the result is this wonderful book that will be presented by the 2 people here on the panel. So I leave the floor to Between and then to the photographer. Thank you very much. Good morning. I'm from the In-Between Association, and in this project in particular, I dealt with the creation of a group of 20 women from our Rubicone area. They came from 9 different countries. They range from 22 to 65 years, and they were doing different jobs, mainly living in Savignano sul Rubicone, San Mauro Pascoli, and Cesenatico municipalities. So I leave the floor to Filippo, our photographer, because he actually organized these ateliers, these workshops. Good morning, my name is Philippe Venturi. I'm a photographer, as it was said, and I'm the one who organized this atelier. We worked on 2 plans. On the one hand, we wanted to give the basis of how photography works. And on the other hand, we wanted to actually share this experience. We wanted to create a group, and this actually happened. So the participants received some disposable cameras so that they could actually take at least 27 pictures. And so that became their working tool so that they could use something different from their smartphones. And they only had 27 opportunities to take pictures, so that enabled them to reflect on what to do with their cameras. So we started in spring 2020, and then, of course, over the year 2020 and 21, we had to deal with the pandemic. So in a sense, that was difficult, but in the other way, it made it possible for us to get closer to each other, to overcome together the problems. So in this workshop, we tried and realized projects focused on personal stories and problems linked to the pandemic and the health conditions. So they tell something about what happened, but also something about the personality of the photographers themselves. The result is this book where you can find all the projects which are linked to different people, so different sensitivities, different nationalities, different looks on what happened. But the common thread, the common denominator is the desire to offer some listening, some closeness, some friendship. Thank you. Thank you very much. I thank you for what you have been telling us so far. Now we'll connect with the Cavriago municipality, where the mayor is present, Francesca Bedoni. Good morning. Cavriago municipality realized a project called Orticelli Ribelli, so rebel vegetable gardens, that was realized with the participation of primary and secondary schools in Cavriago, and the aim was that of working on memory. They wanted to find some special women, and at the end of this project they created Rose Garden, the Rose Garden of great women, and it is highly important to underline the involvement of schools in this project. So the floor is yours. Thank you very much. Good morning again to each and everyone. Yeah, I'm extremely proud to talk about this project, Orticelli Ribelli and Giardini Resistenti. This is the full name. We had different aims at the very beginning. Well, we were pretty convinced of the fact that environment and sustainability are intertwined and linked to the reduction of inequality, in particular to the protection of people's rights and gender equality. So starting from this assumption, we tried and aim the main objectives of the 2030 agenda, in particular gender equality, but not only, also climate change and sustainable communities. We worked with schools, but also with families. We started from the idea that we wanted to reflect with the young generations on the equal opportunities, equal gender opportunities. We worked through the use of music, of theater, and also some literature dealing with gender equality, so different tools, different means, and last but not least, also visual arts. So the result is an idea, so to say, of equality, an idea of woman that this young generations imagine. You can see it in the slides. It's a murales. It's an example of mural art, which was actually based on young generations' ideas, and this mural art piece represents what women are within our communities, so their role in our communities. We also worked on sustainability as another parallel topic, and here the starting point was the fact that we wanted to work with the earth, we wanted to do something concretely, we wanted to understand by means of practical experiences the value of nature, of what nature is offering us, so the soil, the earth. And as I said at the very beginning, we also worked on great, valuable women. It was a long project which involved a number of school classrooms and classes in general, and we asked the girls and the boys to think of some predecessors, not biological predecessors, of course, but predecessors in the sense of women from the past that were more or less known, but women who had something in common. Across different countries, these women had to be representative. Then there was a democratic process, they voted, and they decided a restricted range of women that, in their opinion, deserved being part of this garden. So each and every woman was linked with a specific rose, because we are talking about a rose garden. In a sense, the natural characteristics of the roses had to match the characteristics of these special women, of these valiant women. So gender equality and sustainability in agriculture went hand in hand in this parallel project. As you can see here, this is a picture of the Rose Garden. It was inaugurated last week. And as you can notice, and as I said before, each and every rose is associated and matched with the picture of valiant woman, and by means of QR codes that are very close to each and every rose, you can find out more. For example, a biography of this valiant woman, and there's also a biography of the rose representing that woman, and last but not least, some of the reflections made by the boys and girls involved. And then at the very end, there was a festival, Orticelli Ribelli Festival, which involved the citizenship, so not only the schools and the families. We presented our work, once again, by means of different tools: literature, music, singing, poetry, and they were in the framework of the green garden of our cultural centers, so that people could listen and talk, but also make direct experiences by means of different ateliers and workshops targeting different people, so from kids to adults. This experience hasn't finished yet, because there are a number of diffuse experiences all over this month. And Orticelli Ribelli will kind of invade the whole of this town. And so people will be invited to take care of the municipality. This project will go within our squares, our parks, our houses, so as to play a role and favor change. There's a website, you can have a look at this, www.orticelliribelli.it. I must tell you that this was an extraordinary experience. We enjoyed it a lot, we learned a lot. And in our opinion, this project is not over, because it's just a starting point. A number of ideas mushroomed during this project, and so I'm pretty sure that this project actually paved the ground, prepared the ground by planting some seeds that we will be actually treating with passion over the years. Thank you very much for your attention.
Grazie mille.
Thank you. Thank you to the mayor of Cavriago. We kindly ask you to bear with us until the end of this panel. Now I'd like to give the floor to Mrs. Gatta and Mr. Fasano of the Municipality of Ravenna. And their project is Shaping for Ravenna. They also focused on topics linked to gender and migration, so they will be present in next panels as well. And they organized this participation project in order to carry out initiatives in their area. So thank you very much. Thank you for given me the opportunity to be here with you and to involve our municipality in this project. Shaping for Ravenna, this is the name of the project. It has been an important opportunity over a difficult year, because we seized the opportunity to think about goals that are at the core of our activities, but not always we are able to disseminate them in our initiatives. In particular, as for goal number 5, linked to gender equality, a part of our project was linked to raising awareness on this, and we carried it out together with some corps in our territory, Villaggio Globale, La Casa delle Donne, Associazione Femminile Maschile Plurale, so different associations and bodies in our area which worked with citizens in a participatory way in order to organize events that were both offline and online. So during the summer we were able to gather in presence and to share live in presence what we created online. Some activities involved authors, both Italians and migrant. We read some excerpts from migrant women. We created slogans linked to gender equality that were disseminated in the city. But what I wanted to point out is that as a department, and the department I represent, the fact of going hand in hand with the topic of gender policies with that department, you know, compelled us to think about important topics like migration and the management of migrants and so on. And this was linked to gender equality policies, and it has been an extremely useful experience. We also have to deal with migration experience. So sometimes you never stop thinking about the role of women that can be a vulnerability, and that's something we want to overcome as an obstacle, as a challenge. Sometimes women we host in our centers, they are victim of abuse, of human trafficking, of being enslaved, sexual slaves. So it's something we want to overcome. And shaping Fair Ravenna allowed us to reflect on this, to turn this into a priority. And so this is the most important legacy we bear with us until the end of the project. We want to keep on investing in this topic on gender equality, even within migration, within integration, because integration is both ways. It must consider several aspects, and gender is a priority aspect. And this is a cross goal within the 2030 agenda. So it was an honor to be part of this project. We were able to work at European level, and we hope there will be new opportunities to talk about these topics with our citizens. So thank you very much. So thank you very much, and I would like to conclude this panel with reflection on gender. So I would like to invite Mayor of San Mauro Pascoli, the Mayor of Cavriago, and the representatives of the Ravenna Municipality to discuss about this. We know what was the impact of pandemic on the role of women, on frail people, in particular on women. So I would like to ask you, as councillors, as managers, mayors, and full civil servants of the municipality of Ravenna, how can you mitigate, how can you implement enhanced inclusive policies, therefore responding to this more complex situation due to COVID? A very important thing, and something that we discovered because working together in 9 municipalities is not easy. Working with associations already dealing with this topic is not easy. So networking is fundamental. Another administrative aspect is we have to wonder how we can innovate our social services, because our service and the organization of our social services, their response that they can grant today, it's a standard one. While we need to understand the evolution of society, we need to understand what are the new requests, and we have to be quick in giving a response, because requests are quicker and quicker. So our commitment is to innovate our replies to these new emerging needs, in particular in collaboration with volunteers, with associations, because their role is fundamental to be close to people from a practical point of view. So we are reshaping our services thanks to this dialogue and exchange opportunities. Now, the floor to the Mayor of Cavriago. I agree with my colleague. So my thought is linked to Samana Abbas and a girl. News are talking about her. She disappeared from Novellara, a close municipality here, so we are wondering about her situation, her condition, and one of the potential replies is this. First of all, we have to capture the challenges, to seize the challenges we have to deal with. You have to consider inclusion, integration, gender policies. They are all together. Exactly as my colleague was saying, we have to reshape our services to meet the new needs that are changing and that are evolving, and that they escape from the bidimensional approach that we are adopting as public entities. And then the second aspect, and I think the project Shaping Fair Cities helped us a lot in this, is to seize the challenge of the research and study. We need to find new tools to read reality, and we have to build up these tools all together by including in our daily activity the study, the analysis, research, experiences, not the activities that are neglected and that are left only if you have free time, but they must be considered as crucial activities. So from this point of view, the role of municipalities, of local entities, is fundamental. So we need to strengthen this idea of networking, as my colleague was mentioning before. Thank you. Paolo from Ravenna. If we analyze data from the last report of the Work Ministry on social policies, in particular concerning the employment of foreign citizens, you see a gap in terms of gender and employment compared to a female condition that, of course, is different community by community. So there is not just one migration. You have several forms of migration. We have, for example, high unemployment rate in women, for example, in the Paki community, Bangladesh, or Egypt, the Egyptian community. And so this is something we have to consider, and we are expecting even worse data in 2020, because we are still waiting for this report. And then some stats and researches, in particular as for caregiving activities. And the snapshot is depicting very strong situation. In particular for the younger generation, there is a strong involvement of migrant women in caregiving activities, and this has a strong impact in school dropout, in school attendance. They are not looking for a new job because they are already committed to other non-paid employments. And then there is a local analysis. So there is a new body, citizen assembly, that the municipal council approved to work on intercultural and migration topics, and this is open to the entire citizenship. And we are now finalizing the last call, the last public call. So at the end of June, we will have the first constituent assembly. We need to capture new hints, new suggestions for the creation of new services acting on gender policies in a cross-sectorial way. And then there will be festivals and witnesses, the Intercultural Prize that we award every year. It will be, of course, dedicated to Sabana Abbas as a victim of violence against women, violence perpetrated by the father. And 46 women, unfortunately, died until today as victims of violence against women. So together with our services that we already supply, we want to increase and enhance our services in a more specialized way. So this is our ambition. Many thanks. I have another question to conclude this panel, even if you already replied partially to my question that I'm going to ask. How is the role of education in this process? How can we enhance our work with the youngest and the younger generations? We had violent episodes in the Romagna coast. How can we work with the younger generation? You organize some participatory project, and this is very important, but what is your administration, your municipality, your body doing? Are you thinking about developing specific policies? Coming from pandemic and thinking about working together with school, it's really impossible because school represented the most difficult situation during COVID. The fact that we could not, talk in schools, that already represents a huge problem. A particular action must be carried out with the younger generation, starting from the early age, and in schools belonging to local entities such as the kindergartens, or we can organize integration projects and gathering parents, having them meeting different cultures and parents. If of course, we have a public school, then there are protocols and the opportunity to create projects is reduced. But we think about developing projects involving young boys and girls, but in particular, I think that our work, our activity must focus on parents. We already dealt with cyberbullying, for example, or other hot topics, and the issue of integration and gender equality is a difficult topic, you know, if you want to have it discussed within schools. Because you have to deal with different sexual orientations, and so schools are not so open-minded from this point of view. So we are carrying out projects as a local body, but on some topics it's much more difficult to work on compared to other topics. Now the floor to the Mayor of Cavriago. Thanks for this question. It's a really challenging question. To be concise, I would like to say a couple of things and use two words. The first is contamination, and the second one is experience. So I think that the effort we have to carry out is to develop a cross-sectional approach going outside our borders, the borders of our roles. So I imagine a school being able to work hand in hand with the local area and to be able to reach contamination. So, for example, rethinking the school spaces, therefore including in their daily activity a way of teaching, of, for example, developing curricula programs in a different way, so to enhance direct experiences for boys and girls. So if I had to create a slogan, for example, I would say boys and girls should learn by doing. And today this is possible because we have a direct approach. There are funding, and through the ponds they are in particular allocated for such experiences in this field. So by creating hands-on experiences in what is the meaning of being discriminated, of being part of a minority, and on the other side of being inclusive and welcoming. So creating school as a place, you know, where you can experience a good approach, a healthy approach. But I would like to stress the fact that we need to overcome the rigidity of borders. So school works for its own part, and then municipality, and then all the other bodies in the community. We need a porous network able to create one network in meeting the educational challenge that is crucial for our communities. The Municipality of Ravenna, the representative. So this year, we accepted the invitation of the Emilia-Romagna region for the implementation of new actions in the FAMI scenario, and we involved 11 schools in the Ravenna area, primary and secondary schools, 60 hours per school to organize workshops. It could be theater, sports, arts, and psychological support, starting from the reports of schools acting on the different classes. So we are implementing such activities with Villaggio Sociale, Terra Mia, and other associations, and we want to deal with the gender equality issue that is strongly there, and this was also pointed out by school representatives. So together with this co-op managing the different school activities, we are now trying and understand how we can organize mediation activities with schools. 17.54% of young people enrolled in these primary and secondary schools that are not Italian citizens. In Ravenna, 11.5% is the not Italian population living in the Ravenna area, and almost 75% of these boys and girls were born and are growing in Italy. So it means 75% of boys and girls, speaking Italian and even the dialect of the regions, and they sometimes do not even have the passport of their country, of their parents. They never visited maybe sometimes their origin country, of the country of their parents, but they are not considered as Italian citizens due to our Italian law. And so they have important, significant limits in accessing to different services. That could be sports or school trip or other activities that are hindered by bureaucratic problems. So on the one side, we want to discuss about this with the different political authorities, because this law on citizenship must be amended, absolutely. And on the other side, we want to understand how we can change mediation that is not just 25% of young boys and girls, and we also have to work and to change this approach as for this 75% of boys and girls without Italian citizenship. Thank you very much for your contribution. Thank you to the mayor of Cavriago, to the representative civil servants of the Municipality of Ravenna, or the representative of Unione, Rubicone, Mare. So thank you very much.
Passiamo ora.
Let's move on to the second panel on migration. As for this panel, well, our project focused on inclusivity, and so fair cities for everybody. This means that migration, new citizens were highly important topics for a number of activities carried out by our municipalities in the Emilia-Romagna region, because they aimed at raising awareness and they aimed at inclusive policies. So 3 municipalities worked on this topic. The Russi municipality, the Vice Mayor Anna Grazia Bagnoli is here to represent Russi. And then Castelfranco, and so the Councilor Valentina Graziosi is here as a representative. We also have the Ravenna municipality with Mr. Fasano. As you know already, the Ravenna municipality has worked on equal opportunities and gender equality, but also on migration. So let's start with the Russi project. Russi used augmentative communication as an inclusive method, so it's a highly innovative method. It was developed for Russi municipality, and even citizens that didn't know Italian very well could orient themselves in the municipality, and they could benefit from services that are offered by the Russi municipalities. We loved this innovative approach with respect to augmentative communication, so I'll now ask the Vice Mayor to present the results of this project. Thank you very much. Thank you for this kind invitation. We are a very small municipality in the Ravenna province, and so we are very proud of being here and taking part in this project. As you've just said, we aimed at an inclusive city or town. So we used alternative augmentative communication. It's an innovative approach. It's not very well known. I know it very well because I come from schools and I take care of inclusion. In the Emilia-Romagna region, we are the representatives of inclusive pedagogy, and the University of Bologna was very important with Mr. Cannavaro, Professor Cannavaro, who played a major role in this respect. So inclusion is a highly used word, and I'm trying to tell you what this word meant in this project. So a sustainable community, a sustainable town. In order to achieve this goal, we tried to work on communication and CAA, so augmentative alternative communication, CAA being the Italian acronym. Well, it's a kind of communication that integrates and augments the verbal language so that the verbal communication can be actually amplified. Let's imagine a foreign citizen coming to our municipalities. He or she doesn't know anything about the service, about the municipality, about anything being around. So by means of this kind of communication, this foreign citizen feels part of the community he or she is entering. So what are the objectives of this project? Well, we aimed at creating a network of welcoming and readable, and I'd like to stress this word, readable environments for the whole of the community. We wanted to support communication problems because sometimes there are people having communication troubles. We wanted to create the conditions for citizens being more autonomous in their choices and in their communication. We wanted citizens to play an active role, and we wanted them to get to know the main services of this municipality. This project was targeting women and migrant women in particular, because those are the silent target, those who actually very often stay within their houses, they deal with the daily life, and very often they have problems and troubles in relating with the outside, with the environment. We also aimed at cognitive disabilities, and so children and seniors having these cognitive disabilities, and also tourists and foreigners in general. So when you live in a host country, communicating means being able of communicating and satisfying one's own primary needs. It means that you can talk with the social assistants, you can subscribe to schools, you can talk to the teachers in kindergartens and primary and secondary schools, you can go to the doctor, you can get doctor prescription, you can go to the hospital. All the things are not always easy when you don't speak the language. So, as I've already stressed, we targeted the weakest chains, the weakest elements. So, in particular, the challenge were women and children. As I said before, very often women are within their houses. They find it hard to integrate themselves in this society, and most of our children are foreign children. They were born in Italy, however, and so they feel Italians in certain respects. And in schools, there are many children living in Italy, attending schools in Italy, but they do not have a sufficient Italian. And by sufficient, I mean an Italian that enables them to attend school, to understand the classes, to understand the teachers. And actually, the pandemic has played a major role, a negative role in this respect, because the relegated children were those who were foreign children. They could only use their smartphones in order to attend the classes remotely. And so this remote teaching, this distance learning actually was a problem for these targets. It was also a problem for women because, as I said, they very often have problems in accessing services. And just to quickly tell you the main focuses, well, we aim at people with a house. We want people to have a job. We want people to access the welfare services. We want people to relate with schools. Very often during assemblies, during their daily lives, women keep silent. They do not have a voice. They find it hard to understand our way of teaching, our way of learning, because in the countries they come from, the school is highly different. So these are the focuses of the project. What do we mean by an inclusive town, an inclusive city? Well, this word, inclusion, is frequently used, but wrongly used very often, because inclusion is a process. It is made up of actions, and each and every citizen should play a role in this inclusion. Everybody should participate. So education should be for everybody. The context should be changing in order to meet the needs of each and every person, in order to accept the diversity, in order to make use of different techniques. We need the foreign citizen, the migrant citizen to understand what's going on, to totally understand what's going on. The shops actually were kindly available. Shopkeepers were trained. We also involved the schools in Russi, and as the mayor was saying before, it's often hard to involve schools right now. We had to do it remotely, of course. So in theory, this alternative augmentative communication is like a bridge with the Britain language. It's a first way of communicating, dialogating, understanding, and orienting in the world. So just to give you an example, this is a way of going to the chemistry, to the pharmacy. I do want to thank here all of the shops and shopkeepers because they were available for training. This is another example of shop. Sometimes it's very difficult when there are visits dealing with the eyes and eye troubles, sight troubles, to see whether people actually see or don't see. This is also the case of a marathon because the town is not only made of services but also of sport and loisir. And I'd like to finish with this quote by Khalil Gibran. I'm awfully sorry.
Ho fatto un po' di confusione, ma adesso arrivo. Ce l'ho, Ho ancora un po' di tempo.
I still have a few minutes, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you very much. I like this quote. The reality of the other is not in what the other is revealing, but in what the other cannot reveal. So if you want to understand other people, you shouldn't listen to what people say, but to what people do not say. So in the case of migrant people, well, as Italians, we often talk a lot, while with migrants, we should listen more to the silences. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I pretty convinced of the fact that you did many things. You did tours in the schools, along the streets, because you wanted people to show these slogans, these signs. So you actually raised awareness among young generations. You wanted the signs to be disseminated. You wanted the services to be disseminated. So as far as I see it, it's a highly innovative project. It's interesting, and it's can be an example of good practice to be replicated in other areas in the Emilia-Romagna region. Let me add that teachers in the schools had to deal with distance learning, but even in this distance learning and in the problems of the pandemics, they were available for this project. To go on with the migration, we have Castelfranco Municipality, Valentina Graziosi, and her colleague will be describing this project, whose title is Extra. So people, foreigners, citizens, or former foreigners. The theater also played a role in this project because it had to reflect on what being a foreigner means, what is dividing foreign citizens from Italian citizens, how can we give new opportunities to foreigners. So I'm not telling you anything more. The councillor will tell you everything about it, and Alicia will also share her experience on the project itself. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for your kind invitation. It's an honor to be here because all the projects are highly interesting. There are all good practices that we are actually discussing and describing today. So in our municipality, we started in 2019, and 1 month after we were presenting the Shaping Fair Cities project. So it was really the very, very first project for our municipality, even before COVID and the pandemic, and we were very happy to seize this opportunity during this mandate. Castelfranco Emilia is between Modena and Bologna. It's a transition population, so we have a high percentage of emigration. A number of people come to Castelfranco, but they just come and go, whereas a lower percentage actually stays in Castelfranco. And it's very hard to make the most of what these people are bringing when they stay in Castelfranco before they leave it. We started reflecting on that a few years ago when we started reflecting on how to capitalize this richness. And this is when we understood that times could be ripe to raise awareness among citizens and to do something with the citizenship itself, because we have been using the concept of foreigner in a very, very wide way. We involved 10 associations that are very different from each other. There are those who actually deal with trekking, those who deal with artistic exhibitions. There is an association on culture. There are Indian communities or communities coming from the northern countries of Africa. I mean, we tried and involve a vast number of people and communities, because if we talk about citizenship, we have to talk about citizenship with each and every country, possibly. The Ariete Theatre actually played a role even in the past in this topic, in this framework. And so we actually asked whether they could help and give a hand Of course, the project has been changing over the time of the months because of the pandemic, but something hasn't changed. That is the idea of food for thought, of a collective reflection, of a municipality that listens to what the citizenship has to say and propose. This collective reflection was made possible by means of different tools. We couldn't organize shows in the streets, unfortunately, but we actually used interviews, personal interviews, and we were actually surprised by the usefulness of this tool. A number of people were available for these interviewings, and they actually told something about themselves and the collectivity and the municipality. And so we created a docu-film whose title is Foreigners ? Because, as Cavriago's mayor was saying before, we still have question marks, we still have open questions, and this project actually paved the way to something new, to something that we could do in the future. We are halfway between gender equality and migration, because very often women suffer from these migration issues more than men, and so this is why I'm saying that gender equality and migration go hand in hand. This came out from the interviews in particular, and so gender was a major topic there. We also created a cartoon exhibition. And even in that respect, we couldn't organize it as we wanted because it depended on the pandemics, and a number of events were cancelled. But we managed anyway to talk about gender and citizens that are not officially Italian, but feel Italian and live in Italy. So it's an issue of changing citizenship, of mutating citizenship, so to say. Our aim after COVID actually was the same. And maybe 2020 was even better than the year before for realizing these interviews, because we actually found out that people wanted to be interviewed. They wanted to participate even more than the year before. So this project was a very, very big source of satisfaction for each and every one, and we actually cross our fingers so that during the summer we can actually organize the events we had planned, so there will be movies projected in the streets, and we actually planned it during the summer, the very heart of the summer, so that many people can actually participate. So fingers crossed, and thank you very much.
Thank you. I also would like to involve Aisha, and if she can share her experience with us, both on the project and, in your opinion, how a city can be an inclusive city. So if Castelfranco is an inclusive city, what do you think about it? Thank you. Good morning. My name is Desma. I'm 31. I was born in Morocco, and I live in Castelfranco, Emilia. I've been living there for 30 years, so really, really a citizen of Castelfranco, full title. I'm a social and educator. I work with children and the inclusion project, and so I had the opportunity to take part in this project. So the initial idea was to develop a different pathway together with the Le Ariete Theatre, and then we reshaped our project and we created a documentary film. And this docufilm allowed us both as individuals and as associations, to speak our own voice without filters, be able to tell our experience with no filter whatsoever. And so this opportunity to tell our story and to share our experience created a new form of language, bridging language. It built up new relationships, and this language has been a deep change maker, and it created something new. We broke any patterns. We also reshaped stereotypes. And last but not least, this language represented a fertile ground to build new foundations, to create new sharing opportunities where you can live together, you have emotions, stories, experiences intertwined. And I would like to mention Italo Calvino. He wrote, "Every life is a library, is an inventory of objects and style catalog." So I think this is the meaning of the project of my municipality. This was the final meaning of it. There has been a switch, because for the first time, maybe, even as a citizen of Castelfranco, I've been heard. Somebody listened to me. So there was a change in paradigm. So moving from, being the subject matter of a study and being heard. So a proactive subject. And this makes a huge difference, when you live this situation on the other side. If you are a woman, if you belong to an invisible generation, sometimes we often talk about migration and inclusive processes, but sometimes we forget to listen and to work together. And these two aspects are absolutely intertwined, strictly intertwined. As for inclusion, and this value, there's no inclusion without interaction. We have to enhance contamination. We have to listen to each other. We have to educate, our gaze. We have to see beyond the chador, beyond the skin tone, beyond the gender. So this is the goal also of one of the goals of 2030 agenda. As Councillor Graziosi was saying before, the after COVID and interviewed started in October, they were genuine, because they created this need, for talking, for meeting, for, being face to face. And so the Ariete Theatre was a case in point. The fact of having the possibility of getting closer, in Africa you talk about Ubuntu. So I am because we are. It's a philosophy and so you can move from the self culture to the selfish culture to the we culture. We are, so embracing the other perspective. So I must say that this project represented a great opportunity as a representative of a second generation. So I would like to thank the region, Emilia-Romagna, the municipality of Castelfranco Emilia, and the Arete Theatre, because they listened to me with no bias, and they allow me to tell my story, to tell who I am, through a short interview. And I would like to conclude by make an invitation before we talk about sowing, this the preparation of this inclusive soil, and maybe one day we can pick up inclusion, the inclusive fruits. So for better cities, thank you. Thank you, Aisha, for your experience, touching experience. When we talk about cohabitation stories, about listening, dialogue, sharing, is crucial, and this is the approach that our local bodies should adopt. So thank you very much, Aisha. Now I'll give the floor to the Ravenna municipality, and in particular in the topic of migration in this project of participation. So we talked about specific services, for example, help desks or social actions, for example, in helping non-accompanied foreign children. So these specialized services have been developed over the recent years, and we are trying to develop this relationship, addressing citizens, so services that are created within the migration field, but then that they are provided to the community at large. So this idea of change, which should contribute to the creation of a more inclusive community, territorial community. If we talked about the different projects of FI, so an assistant mode and the personalized, the customized approach, this is a pattern that has been applied over the last 20 years. So you have this professional profiles developed within these initiatives that could be cultural broker or ethnic psychologists. So new professional roles that are not maybe rooted in the original territorial service network, but if you think about other inclusive measures in fighting against poverty or in improving the employment market. So our project has been developed within this scenario, which built up a new network made up of services, of bodies, of agencies, both in the co-planning and in the proactive phase, so in terms of welfare initiatives and community initiatives. So the shaping project has been used by us in two ways. In 2020, due to the pandemic, we were not able to organize the culture festivals. We always organize it in June. But if you remember, in June, there was some opening last year, but we decided to use the project in order to organize another event at the end of July, 2 days in the multicultural neighborhood in Ravenna, which is the Darsena, which is now undergoing a requalification from an urban point of view. So it's the most international neighborhood within a town that is beautiful, but with a different face, you know. While this neighborhood is close to the harbor, so we also recover this relationship with water, and so the local administration is investing in developing this link with the town, and so we organized this 2-day event to promote this project. So in the public reception services, most of the citizens involved in programs are made up by young men and women in their working age. So they have, the social services have a universal approach, but they are more related to handicapped people or with other types of people. So we know that the economic crisis, another word opened up, but these people also have some multi-dimensional disadvantages. For example, as for their accommodation, employment contract, so the temporary job, there is language problems. So we decided to organize this welfare measures, you know, for this type of users who need support not only for their accommodation, but also as mentorship, as, you know, developing their autonomous approaches. So they were welcomed for a limited period of time, and then all of a sudden we asked them to be independent, to start relating themselves with the external world. So that's why we developed this idea, and this idea is for the entire citizenship, because this project is developed both for children and for adults. So for example, families can be involved in, you know, offering their time, and so not just their house, but the entire citizenship can take advantage from it. Could be the elderly or refugees, children or university students, you know, coming from other regions. So this network reinforces the social texture, the social structure. If we, for example, think about the Refugee Welcome Association or the CIDAS co-op proposing another reception pattern, or the Belarus Association for children coming from Belarus, now they are working on a project for elderly, or other association, or Intercultural Association working with the Intercultura Association, working with schools for culture exchange of international students, but also working with the university students at the beginning of their experience. So this is an integrated activity addressing the entire citizenship. So this activity is included in Goal 11, but it is also it is also related with goal number 10. So it has to deal with migration, but also with the reducing inequalities. So during the first day, we hosted the first public debate in this square on welcoming new migrants without any relative or any friends in town. And then on the second day, we also talked about the welcoming or receiving of families. So we also had a show by the theater group, by the Panda Project. So we would like to thank you very much for allowing us to organize these resources and to allocate, additional resources to develop these initiatives. For example, the citizen meeting, assembly. So you call upon the entire citizenship to think about topics relating to migration and intracultural approach. Thank you very much. So thank you very much for your observations. Just a final remark to conclude this panel. As you know, at national level, the national strategy was approved, to educate citizenship, and then an action plan will follow. And the position of regions, and I would like to share this observation with you. So the position of regions is that local bodies must play a role in order to implement these policies, for the education of global citizenship. And right now, this approach is taken only by associations. We know that associations play a crucial role, but since we talk about education and we talk about a national strategy with an impact at regional level, we think that regions should play a fundamental role, should work together with municipalities and local communities in order to implement programs at local level, because the education to global citizenship will become a subject that is going to be studied in schools. And so some people state that only associations should deal with it, while we are asking that there should be a regional, a public approach, from the region, top-down approach. As we talked about schools before, I was asking you, what is the impact of schools in creating this curricular or in developing this course of studies starting from primary schools? I would like to give the floor to the representative of the Russi municipality. Of course, to reach these goals, we must work all together. Otherwise, we will miss the goal. Associations play a fundamental role everywhere, but institutions such as schools, for example, they play a crucial role in organizing the different study courses. But sometimes it's not easy. In some areas, it's easier to work together. But I think that the final goal of any municipality, of any local body, is to organize and to develop shared action plans. For example, in Russi, this is a small town. We know everyone, so even at a personal level, so it's easier to discuss this with people. So for us, it's not so hard to get into schools and to work hand in hand with schools. Because in schools, you find another word. So and of course, students, children, they enter in schools when they are in kindergarten, primary schools, and you really find any situation in schools. So I think that this is the specific place to train and educate children, but by, defining this fundamental as a subject, schools must revise this standard curricula, during the pandemic, the most difficult places were health units and schools. So I think that before the pandemic, schools were neglected. We took it for granted. And when all of a sudden we had to shut down schools, then we realized their importance and relevance. Listen to each other, being face to face and casting an eye on what we are, who we are. We must be global citizens. This is our house, and we have to work together on this. So now the Councilor of the Castelfranco Municipality, I agree with my colleague. I think that institutions must play their role. It's very important because, as you were saying, it's a national goal, and also because institutions must take a proactive part in this change that has to do with the global citizenship. We try this cooperation. We, of course, respect the school independent approach, but we want to work together. We, for example, last year developed a project with a touching specific issues that for primary schools might be complicated. For next year, we are developing a project on racism because we think that we have to deal with the current reality at worldwide, at Italian level, and to give a different view of history and, embracing all the world regions. So I think we have to cooperate with the institutions, so schools, municipalities, citizens, and of course, bearing in mind that we have to listen. Sometimes teachers are the ones asking for more tools because they have to deal with constantly evolving reality in schools with new frailties, and in particular I'm referring to the education on human rights, and some teachers say that I have to explain to my kids that maybe one student hasn't any lunch because he has no money for that, and I want to explain this by respecting every person's situation and individuality. So I think teachers will be for sure proactive in asking for new tools. So I think institutions must play a catalyzing role because associations, of course, they work, but they have to work hand in hand with institutions because the burden for them is too heavy to deal with it alone. So we have to be there as institutions to create a consistent curricular. And this project on racism, for example, that we are planning, it's in cooperation with Fondazione Villa Emma. They deal with this memory issue, and they said we have to work with teachers because we have to know what is the situation, in every class. We cannot develop a standardized project. Thank you. Paolo, the Municipality of Ravenna. In our opinion, school plays a crucial role in a networking context with rulers, and we have to go even far beyond being less shy. We have to better nurture network connections at local level. So developing the different relations among players to enhance this idea of integration. Excellences, of course, are fundamental, but you also have to coordinate all these players. And it is important to share data, to share information. I was surprised when I saw the percentage of women included in not employed, not student, but they are completely devoted to the caregiving activity without any return whatsoever. So IT infrastructures, school infrastructure must be shared in an open way. In this way we can reach our goals. You know, we can share procedures and practices. If we succeed in doing so, we will boost the cooperation level and we will develop a networking culture for our local entities. So I do believe that schools must be involved, but we have to reinforce their roles and we have to develop work strategies based on the creation of territorial partnerships.
Thank you very much. Aisha, you have the floor for some concluding remarks, just a few words to conclude this panel. Well, an inclusive town is a town which listens, to start with. It's a town that is friendly and welcoming, and it's a town or a city which wants to work with and not work for. Let me stress this difference. When we work together with people and we share an objective, we actually achieve that objective and goal because everybody feels included. So that's my answer. Thank you very much, Castelfranco, Russi, and Ravenna municipalities for this opinions and this enriching conversation. Let's move on to the third panel, the one devoted to the environment. So it's the Shaping Fair Cities project financed by the European Commission. The Emilia-Romagna region is a partner together with the municipalities of Emilia-Romagna, Modena, Forlì, Reggio Emilia, and other international partners. In particular, we have Scuteri Municipality, Spalato Municipality, Iași in Romania, Vaile in Denmark, Farshopping in Sweden, Alicante in Spain, and Pemba in Mozambique. So it's a national and international partnership for this EU-financed project. As for the panel on the environment, the Emilia-Romagna region has worked hard. We have approved the Pact on Climate, And so in this region, we will have new policies based on the 2030 agenda priorities. And so many challenges have to be faced over the future years, demographic challenge, climate emergency, like Cacciamani told us this morning, and also the increase in social inequalities. In this panel in particular, a number of municipalities will share their views on different projects that were made possible by the subgranting. We have Spillamberto, Misano Adriatico, Savena Idice, Maranello, Romagna Faentina, and Cesenatico municipalities. So let me give the floor to the first one, which is the municipality of Spillamberto. The mayor is with us, together with some representatives of the Teens Council of Spillamberto. Thank you very much. It's very nice to be here with you, and it's a great pleasure for us to participate in this event. What you see here, it's not Spillamberto 2021, but it's the future of Italy, because we believe in environmental sustainability. Spillamberto is very innovative in this respect. We are among the first municipalities for differentiated waste disposal. And let me tell you that here, just in front of you, you have boys and girls that look at the future. They are the boys and girls that are part of the Teen City Council in Spillamberto, Aja, Liba, Nada, and Kabir as well, coming from Tilt Association, and myself. Well, we represent an Italy that can be hardly seen, but it's already there, and that kind of Italy, that Italy of the future, is already starting to play a role. In Spillamberto, you have 30% of the population that is made up of foreign citizens that actually live in Spillamberto, and so they have a different background, a different origin, and it's a high percentage in our schools. It's in our schools, but also in our municipality, because this foreign blood is also in the majors' bloods. And nowadays, this looks original, but that will be the future. That will be more and more frequent in the future, where we will be mixed up, where our blood will be mixed. Sasso is our project, and we wanted actually to throw a stone, because sasso in Italian means stone, and this project aims at building up a communication campaign together with the teenagers, boys and girls together. We wanted to do a peer-to-peer action, an action that could be targeting teenagers, but not only, even adults, the whole of the population living in Spillamberto. This was our political goal and guideline and rationale. We wanted to produce something together, something that wasn't existing yet. We wanted to have a campaign focusing on the use of tap water, and we wanted to do that with boys and girls, with teenagers that have different ethnic backgrounds. They come from the 5 continents, and we are very proud of our outcomes. I would like to give the floor to them, in particular to Kabir from Tilt Association, because he will give you some more details. Yeah, I represent the Tilt Association, the Ennesimo Film Festival, and on their behalf I want to thank the Municipality of Spillamberto and also the Teen City Council, because hand in hand, all together, we did something interdisciplinary in a sense. We raised awareness on environmental issues, in particular on the use of public water, of tap water. We also dealt with the disposable plastic, and we tried and use pictures, images, so as to have an advertising campaign that could actually raise awareness. The Teen City Council was coordinated by a teacher, and I'd like to thank Chiara Mataferri, this great teacher, who actually supported us in her participation shows that the school actually played a major role in coordinating all the events and the meetings. It was an interesting path involving different enterprises. ERA, for instance, TIWI, it's a communication enterprise, another enterprise I'd like to thank right now. So it was a path, a common path, as I said, and the Teen City Council actually played a role. All of the teenagers there participated in this project, enabling them to see how an idea can be developed, where does it start from, how it can be communicated to the citizenship, not just peers, so teenagers, but also adults like parents or grandparents. It made it visible for them how we can shape the future, how we can shape future societies and a different world, a world which respects the soil, the air, the water, the natural elements in general. So this is what we tried to do. The campaign was launched last spring, this spring actually, so it's ongoing. And the results can be seen in the municipalities Terra dei Castelli, which is a union, but also on the website of the Spillamberto municipality. You can see all the references to events, to people. You can see how people use creativity and awareness in order to make this possible. So thank you very much to everybody. I don't know whether you want to say something on your experience. Yeah, I'd like to say that by means of this project, the councillors of this Teen City Council actually understood what the environment is, what is going on at local, national, and international point of view. We shared views with our peers, and we made some campaigns that could be helpful for other citizens so that everybody could understand not just the present situation, but also the future situation. I'd like to thank the professors, the teachers who actually helped us and supported this project. Thank you. Nada? I'd like to tell you that we enjoyed this project as well. It was not just interesting, but funny. It required a lot of time and engagement, but at the very end, I mean, we were very happy. And I'd like to thank our teachers and the Municipality of Spillamberto for giving us this opportunity to better understand the situation, not just in Spillamberto where we live, but in the world in general. We actually managed to involve our peers, the young generations, and that was made possible thanks to the Spillamberto municipality. You know, I wouldn't have thought of speaking in front of a public, going on a TV, so thank you, thank you. Thank you. I didn't introduce you. Ajar, Hiba, Nada. You are here as representatives of the Teen City Council. Camille Youssouf, the educator. Thank you all for your precious work. And the mayor, Umberto Costantini, who will be staying with us for the remaining part of this panel. Thank you. we have now the municipalities participating in this topic. So let me repeat it: Spillamberto, Misano Adriatico, Unione Savena Idice, Maranello, Romagna Faentina, and Cesenatico municipalities. Some of them are online, we can see them, whereas some others are here. So let's move on with the Savena Idice, working on environmental processes and education. Good morning. My name is Alicia Milano. I'm responsible for the equal opportunities in Savena Idice Union. This union is made up of 5 municipalities: Pianoro, Loiano, Terenzio, Polidoro, e Onzano dell'Emilia. These 5 municipalities actually participated in Etica project, and we aimed at building with this Earth Emergency Meeting Change Environment project a participatory process. We wanted to share strategies with the young generations. As I said before, I deal with education and services to young generations. So our objective was to involve young generations in peer education and awareness raising for the whole citizenship. Just like the other colleagues in the other municipalities actually said before, well, we also had to take actions. Some of these actions had to be done in March and April 2020. And, just like for the other municipalities, we had to deal with the pandemics, with COVID-19. But that meant for us that we needed some food for thought, and we actually had some food for thought with young people. We had organized some ateliers of theater and dance that were organized by the schools of the 5 municipalities I've mentioned before. Pianoro and Ozzano were playing a major role, and in the sense that there were associations also participating. And at the end of this atelier and workshops, we wanted to organize some flash mobs on the area, and we wanted to build up a final concluding video clip that was meant to tell the result of this advertising campaign coming from the bottom. Well, on the 26th of February, as you may remember, we found out that we were supposed to close the schools, the centers devoted to young generations. Well, all of our ateliers and workshops were cancelled. So we had to make a decision, either abandoning, either postponing, or transforming our project. We received the support of educators, and we actually managed to transform it and to move on-site atelier into online atelier. We created a working group which enabled us to organize this theater labs with Zoom, with this platform. It was hard, extremely hard, as you can imagine, and a number of teenagers had problems and troubles in connecting to the Zoom platform. As you may know, we also have mountains, hills, and people living in the mountains and hills didn't have the tools necessary in order to connect. They also had problems in attending classes at school, but they wanted to do it, and thanks to the support of educators, we actually managed to achieve this goal. And the teenagers were actually reflecting on a number of points. They were reflecting on what climate change meant. And of course, this reasoning, this food for thought, underwent some changes because the COVID topic, the COVID and the pandemic big topic, actually impacted on our reflections. They started reflecting on what COVID was and how it could impact on climate action and climate change. So this is why, how can I say this? I moved when I present this project. It was touching because we managed to do what we wanted to do, and at a certain point, the educators and the cameramen of visual labs managed to enter some houses. I let you imagine what it was to actually go into houses. And they managed to film, to record the daily life of these young people in the bedrooms. And they managed to record and take pictures of what was happening at the time, of the change that was going on. In June, we managed to go out from our houses and we organized a very, very tiny flash mob if compared to what we wanted. It was in Pianoro, and after the video you'll see it, hopefully. Well, the young people there are kind of blocked. You'll probably notice it. They were blocked in the open air. They were blocked irrespective and despite the possibility of having the opportunity to make this flash mob at the end. In this video clip, there are their reflections, in particular on the global framework, because they reflected on what happened when the first astronauts actually managed to land on the moon. And they reflected on how that changed our way of seeing the Earth. They reflected on the fact that the moon was before a very, very tiny spot and then became something big. In a sense, the pandemic changed the perspective, changed the viewpoint, and so they reflected on how the relationship between human beings and the environment was changed by the pandemic. They reflected on how our behaviors can have an impact on the environment, on the climate, and they could actually experiment it in their daily lives. This video clip was extremely successful, so we are very proud and satisfied with this clip. It was disseminated. More than 16,000 people actually viewed this video on YouTube. And so what we did was streamed and disseminated. Also the peers could see what the friends were doing and had done. So in a sense, the fact that they were so brave, the fact that the small group of teenagers was so brave, enabled the citizenship to understand how the topic important was, in a sense. It was a very, very big success and a very big result, even if the group was small if compared to what we had thought at the very beginning. I'll show you the video. Thank you.
20, 19, 18, 17, guidance release, 15, 14.
Steering is converged, CMC is go. Roger.
Mark 3 minutes 45 seconds. Apollo 16, now 62 nautical miles altitude, 130.
John Young now pointing the far UV camera at another target. This camera takes a sequence of pictures, takes two pictures in that sequence, one on photographic film, another spectrum.
È incredibile, così fragile.
It's incredible, so frail, alone, out of a black background. It looks like an island, oasis. We have to care after it. It's our huge house. It always protected us from the space, the outer space. Now we understand how many things we take for granted. The universe is so intelligent, so smart, that it makes me fear. I mean, I'm afraid of it. Can we protect our planet?
La terra è tutto ciò che abbiamo. Non viviamo in guerra ma la distruggiamo. Cerchiamo di capire chi siamo ma non dove siamo. La vita è di tutti ma non c'è solo la nostra. Viviamo tutto il mondo come se fosse una giostra. La ruota non la fermi e dopo sarà rotta. L'aria è fuori dalla porta, la natura sarà morta senza arte, non una natura morta. Il pianeta ci disseta ma ci vieta di sprecare quel che conta. Cosa conta? La meta è più lontano della strada che ci sporca. La terra è del futuro e non è solo nostra. La terra è tutto ciò che abbiamo. Non viviamo in guerra ma la distruggiamo. Cerchiamo di capire chi siamo ma non dove siamo. La terra è tutto ciò che abbiamo. Non viviamo in guerra ma la distruggiamo. Cerchiamo di capire chi siamo ma non dove siamo.
Grazie mille.
Thank you. Thank you for your speech, for the video. Now I would like to give the floor to the Misano Adriatico Municipality and the Misano 2030 Green. They worked hard on this idea of sustainability, citizenship. This town attaches a great importance to the separate waste collection, to the environment, and Misano also developed a local action plan created based on this project, Misano 2030. Alberto Rossini, thank you for your kind invitation and for allowing me to explain this project, which is included in a wider activity that the Misano municipality is doing to develop tools for sustainability, touching different topics like pollution, and in particular, sustainable mobility. We, of course, do it with the support of the mayor and of the councillors, and in particular of the councillor for environment in this case. We were really happy to take part in this call of action and to develop some action plans. There were 5 basic actions behind the project. So the first one, coordination, the second one, communication 2.0. So as we said, of course, we had to switch this communication format based on the new needs generated by the COVID pandemic. So we worked a lot on different media, newspapers, local TVs and radios. And as for planning, we also had to review the different activities, but the central part of the project was based on this 20 video interviews. We defined them as pills. Inside, we listened to the voices of the main players in the Misano area, hotel owners, restaurant owners, young people, the theater association, civil servants, councillors, migrants, living in the area. And so we collected their experiences and witnesses. Of course, the leitmotif was the attention for the environment, the protection for the environment, and what we can do at public level could be the different categories. The school, in particular, they also took part in this interview making, and we involved middle school classes. And in particular, we discussed in these interviews, we discussed what we can do at municipal level, but also as individuals, for example, in collecting waste, in riding a bike rather than driving a car, in paying attention to what we buy, to the energy consumption in house. For example, by re-qualifying one's hotel based on energy efficiency parameters, and also as for seismic, earthquake, infrastructural characteristics. And then we wanted to focus on some priorities that should be developed within the Misano municipality. This is, for example, the sustainable mobility. Misano has less than 15,000 inhabitants, so it is not compelled to apply a sustainable mobility plan, but we decided to develop this PUMS, P-U-M-S, this plan, this urban plan, and so we developed this plan and we approved it. So it was a big effort, but we wanted to reach the goals of mobility, sustainable mobility. And we reached the goals at regional level in terms of air quality. We are developing the public transportation on the bike specific lanes, and in particular moving the traffic area from the school areas so that children can go to school by feet. Same thing, we worked on the action plan for sustainable energies. We started in 2018, and thanks to this project, we not only controlled the plan, defined the attained goals, and so we reached this threshold of 20% that was established by the 2030 agenda. But in the end, we also approved the plan adaptation based on climate change and sustainable energy, and with an unanimous voting in the municipal council. Misano is also committed in drafting the general urban plan according to Law 20 of the region Emilia-Romagna, approved in 2017, and in July we will adopt this plan within the council, so we can say that all the strategies in relation to environment, energy, sustainability, and so on will be fully integrated into the institutional municipal approach for the next few years, because we have to consider that by 2050 we cannot exceed this threshold of 3%. So thank you, Alberto. Thank you for your presentation. As for the policies implemented by the Misano municipality, as for environmental policies, now we have Walter Sancassiani from Maranello, the Maranello municipality. They worked on localizing the goals of 2030 agenda, and they developed a local urban plan, and he will tell us how they implemented such plans in the area. My name is Sancassiani, and I work for Focus Lab, the company which helped the municipality of Maranello in implementing the different steps of the Fair Cities project. I'm an ambassador of the Maranello municipality in this case. I prepared a few slides to talk about our pathway, our project. In the afternoon, we will launch a video with interviews to the players involved during the preparation of this project. Project's goals were to disseminate some of the 17 goals, in particular the goals of the Fair Cities project. And the aim was to highlight the practices and actions taken in the area, and then to create new examples to boost new ideas and action plans. Of course, we had to reshape some actions due to the pandemic, and this is the timeline of our project. So at the beginning of 2020, we prepared the process, we mapped all the players, we created information tools, we developed a dedicated agenda for the municipality. So this represented a novelty within the communication strategy of the municipality. And then 4 meetings were organized. We kept them, even if, of course, we were in lockdown due to the pandemic. So there was one face-to-face and all the others online. So you see from January, February until the end of May, we organized this webinar addressing employees. So every meeting had a specific target of recipients, but always focusing on 3 goals. So even if we are now discussing the climate change panel, and so you have actions in relation to environment, but we always tried and deal with the other goals, like number 13 and 16. So during the meetings with civil servants and councillors, we wanted to point out some actions concerning these goals. And for the dissemination part, we wanted to take real examples of Italian cities and foreign cities where small towns were committed in disseminating the 17 goals, SDGs, and in integrate them into the local policies and to control and control the contribution for better planning, for a better impact on the territory. And then another meeting was for the migrant and social organizations, and we had this brainstorming approach with the World Cafe, and a third workshop was more for cultural associations. So you see, in 1 month we organized 3 workshops. And this was for the presentation, just to introduce the work that has been conducted. From communication and dissemination point of view, we wanted to adopt a multi-channel approach from the website, where you could download documents and videos, 2030 agenda and 169 tags, because of course the 17 SDGs are learned by heart, but the big challenge is to convince people to read 169 tags in order to be well aware of all the opportunities existing for public officers, for civil servants, for non-profit associations, schools, institutions, and then videos provided by the region, by the United Nations. Many videos are dedicated to different sectors, and they are available online. And then we created a kind of inventory. We also produce a guide including 40 actions on the 5 goals established. And so this is a real practice guideline that was given to the participants so that they can see, they can learn what to do day by day in a practical way, starting from these goals. If I'm a student, if I'm a shop owner or a businessman, and then an exhibition organized by the United Nations on the 17 SDGs, 1 per panel. And so you see it at the entrance of this building. So when you go to these offices, you can have a look at this exhibition, and then a game for students. So this is a list of the different communication tools that we adopted from the point of view of participants. Here you see a list of participants, all the players coming from 3 macro areas, so volunteers, civil society, migrants, but also public officers, schools. Here you see a summary of the outcomes. So in a few months, more than 100 participants in 4 webinars, 4 meetings. At least 50 practices emerge from these webinars, like action plan or best practices in order to implement these goals, and 30 actions implemented by these players on inequalities, on the different goals. And it was important to highlight, the existing part, but also to highlight what we could do more on top of these actions. And so we defined 30 priorities, so that they can boost the activity of the public administration. You see, several categories were involved. We had a good response by the participants. You can find this list in the website of the Maranello Municipality. In particular, on goal number 11, sustainable cities, you can see a list of activities carried out by volunteer associations, by schools, by the Cultural Association, the Islam Cultural Association. I would like to point out that during the lockdown, they organized in a voluntary way, this cleaning service of parks or other pilot actions for zero emissions. So mixture of interesting actions carried out at local level that were listed and compared. So here you see other actions implemented by the association here, a list of actions implemented by the municipality, different plans must be applied also at European level, but some plans go beyond the different mandates, such as the ISO 50001, so the energy certification in managing energy flows, and other projects relating to the social dimension, like women empowerment, or in case of recovering goods seized to the mafia, or dementia-friendly community project. So, thank you. Thank you, Walter.
Anche a questo tema dei
Thank you very much. Now, with respect to the local plans, a number of municipalities during the project made different things, and we will be summarizing them all. Some of them actually sent the projects and initiatives. Those who haven't done it yet, please send everything to us, because we will prepare the last project document, that is the guidelines with respect to the localization of the 2030 agenda. So what Misano described, Maranello described, and what Unione Romagna Faentina will be describing right now, all of this should be sent to us so that we can actually map and systematize everything in a global regional project. So without further ado, Sara Cirone, I'll give you the floor. You are part of Unione Romagna Faentina, and your project is dealing with strategic planning of this union area, and you prepared a report which takes care of the policies of the union and the SDGs. So, Sara, you have the floor. Thank you very much for your invitation. Let me thank you also on behalf of our union, Romagna Faentina. We are Sara Cirone Group, a benefit pro bono society, and among the things we do, we actually deal with the support to local areas so that they can strategically plan their actions. So with the whole union of Romagna Faentina, we tried and carry out peculiar project
dell'Unione della Romagna Faentina. Voi dovete sapere.
And we actually managed to do this. We tried 2 years ago with this reporting, and we did it for a union in Sasso Marconi, so again in Emilia-Romagna region. It was a matter of reporting, and it was the first opportunity for us to actually deal with this reporting. And so this is why with Unione Romagna Faentina, we decided to kind of replicate what we had done. I'm talking about a union, so we are made up of different municipalities, 6, and it's a peculiar project. It wasn't easy, I must tell you. It was complex because we wanted to overcome a number of issues. In particular, we wanted people to work together. We wanted people to start doing things and start thinking that what is planned can be then monitored so that the strategic planning goes forward, so that the objectives of the 2030 agenda are always there, even in the future, in the planning of the municipality in the future. So we try to overcome a number of issues, and in particular the attitude of those who do things because they have to, without thinking about future impact and future sustainability. We involved civil servants, local health authorities. We are talking about more than 500 people because we are dealing with the union of the 6 municipalities. So all of the people actually participated. They got to know the agenda, the objective of reporting and of impact assessment. They got to know what the strategic planning was involving. So it's a project about participatory planning. It's an experience also of dialogue with the local authorities and administration, and the aim was to find out the main topics, the main focuses of this union. So participation, sharing, main topics, and the main objective was that of measuring the objectives. And in the short term, we wanted to monitor these objectives. So how can I tell you? Well, we achieved the goals. The project was carried out. We used a reporting framework which is widely used internationally, but without going into the technical details, what I can tell you is that Emilia-Romagna Faentina had already worked on this kinds of reporting. We had worked on the strategic planning in line with the United Nations agenda, and so in a sense we could reuse and replicate what we had done in the past, even in this international framework. The integrated report and reporting is an innovative tool. Normally, societies, enterprises that are on the stock exchange or that are public enterprises normally use this international reporting framework, and we experimented it with Sasso Marconi first and foremost, then with Unione Romagna Faentina, and this summer the Bologna version will be also disseminated. And what I can tell you right now is that it works because it's not a rigid framework. It's an international framework that can be adapted to the different local processes, considering the short, middle, and long term. And so you can actually report, measure the DUP projects, and in particular the projects of different sections, and you can systematize and capitalize them within a global framework. You can assess the natural capital, the organizational capital, the real estate capital, the material capital, so a number of different capitals that are not only financial or economic, and that can be helpful in order to get a clearer picture, a broader picture. All of these elements can be integrated into this framework, and the main asset, the main outcome, and the main reason why we actually participated in this project is that once you have reported, you have the active participation of the local area, because by so doing, by this reporting, you have an active participation on main topics. And so you achieve a simplification of all the bureaucratic elements. And in 80, maximum 100 pages, you have a summary of what has been done. And this is very short if compared to the thousands and thousands of pages that are normally issued at the end of this reporting. So with those 80 pages or 100 pages, you can do focus groups, you can involve the citizenship, you can talk about what is happening, and you can do it in a synthetic way, so it's summed up, but it's not far from what is really happening. So you still have details, and you are still able to explain what the municipality has done for the citizenship, for the local area. So as far as I think, the final output of this process is highly important, because the process itself is a structural one. And as I said, you can integrate the United Nations agenda in the local strategic plans, but, and that is more important, you can share them within a global framework, a global vision and a systemic one. So, as many colleagues said beforehand, it's a matter of networking and systemic networking and vision. We need to share all the strategic elements of the local area. So on behalf of the Unione della Romagna Faentina, I really thank you for your kind attention. We thank you, Sara Cirone, for this example. That's a useful one, and it's again a good practice of your local area that could be replicated in other municipalities. Now online we have the councillor Valentina Moltati of the Municipality of Cesenatico, and she will be presenting a project on environmental education, and it's an awareness-raising campaign aiming the Cesenatico citizens. I really thank you for your invitation. I would have liked to be there, but unfortunately I'm online because of other engagements. Well, I don't know whether you can see my slides. Normally now you can. So Cesenatico was part of the Shaping Fair Cities grant with a project of awareness raising on the development of SDGs and 2030's agenda. The project is called CELIPLA, meaning Cesenatico free of plastic, Cesenatico libera dalla plastica. So the main goal of the project is to raise awareness and, to train the population on what these people can do in order to fight against climate change. So we worked on two levels. On the one hand, practical actions that actually produce direct effects, and on the other hand, we also worked on non-material activities, mainly on communication and training. Maybe you don't know it, but Cesenatico is a touristic municipality, so we have 7 kilometers of coast. It's the Adriatic coast, and the sea is fundamental for all the local activities. So we have a high number of tourists, and I seize the opportunity to say hello to all Cesenatico inhabitants who mainly deal with tourism and mainly work from May to September, so during the summer season. Over the years, however, tourists have come and started to come also in other moments of the year during, for example, festivities like Christmas or Easter. And so, in a sense, the impact on waste has been increasing. A number of wastes are abandoned along the beach. And so we wanted to avoid this. We wanted to urge people use correctly plastic containers, and as a municipality we wanted to start a few policies in order to not really abandon plastic, because we still have to use plastic, but we wanted to avoid disposable plastic. So we organized different campaigns, not only to the citizens, but also targeted to the tourists themselves. And we started from people that are sensitive. I mean schools, I mean teenagers, I mean young generations that are sensitive to the topic. Cooperativa Sociale La Vela cooperated in this project. This cooperative has been working for years, and Pastore is the president, so I thank him very much for all he has been doing so far. And as it was recalled even before, a number of volunteers were involved, coming from Forlì Cesena, who is an historical partner for Cesenatico. But there were also other foundations and, networks that helped us pass on a very key, important message. Because the municipality, without each and every element around, wouldn't have achieved the goal. So concretely, we tried and organized these ecological containers in primary and secondary schools and also in kindergartens. We also put these containers in the municipality because actually the municipality should give the good example. We tried to reuse raw materials and we tried to reduce the use of plastic and to actually foster separate collection of waste. What about the expected results? Well, the reduction in the use of plastic, the reduction in waste abandoning, and the increase of separate collection of waste. Just a few pictures from the project, just to give you an idea of what we did. I personally distributed, and also the mayor went in each and every classroom in order to give these containers, these bins. And whenever you go and speak to the kids are really the most sensitive citizens. They understand your message, they are touched, they are moved, they raise their awareness, and then they bring the good example in the houses, within the families. So it's highly important to involve the schools. It's highly important to involve the kids, the tiny citizens of our municipalities. Some other pictures, those were municipal venues. So we organized 3 days, 25 and 26th of September. In that case, the Cetacea Foundation also played a role, and we actually freed 2 tortoises. They were found on the Cesenatico beach, and this is a side effect of plastic, which highly affects these tortoises, because actually the plastic sachets are taken for jellyfishes, and so they try and eat this plastic bag, and unfortunately this has an impact on tortoises' life, and so we find these tortoises on the beach. Sometimes the fishermen are able to actually find these tortoises when they do their job, and this Cetacea Foundation actually managed to save these tortoises, and so we organized together with school classes some events, and we could free these tortoises. So it was a very, very important message for the children and for the tourists. There was also a theater performance. Roberto Mercadini actually realized and coordinated this theater performance, and the main topic was the reuse of plastic containers and recycling. Another action was the realization on some videos. They were streamed on YouTube, and the community helped a lot in the communication advertising campaign. We distributed some advertising materials, and let me finish with some pictures. This is what we did on the beach with the kids and the tourists. This is a picture from the theater performance. And these are the numbers of containers we have distributed in the schools, in the municipality venues, and in the different events. And this is the economic contribution that might sound unimportant, but this economic support is highly important, because this is what enables a municipality to do projects. And this is what voluntary associations and volunteers actually made possible in order to foster virtuous cycles and virtuous actions. We prepared a video, and so I thank you for your attention, and I ask whether this video can be shown.
salvare il mondo, ok? Ma è vero che bisogna salvare il mondo? Cioè, in che senso bisogna salvare il mondo? Visto che sono a distanza vi tolgo... Perché il mondo è una palla di roccia di 5 miliardi di chili e lei sta benissimo, nessuno la capisce, non è che se buttiamo i cotton fioc per terra la palla di roccia di 5 miliardi di chili si offende, è una roccia. Quando diciamo di salvare il mondo, in realtà significa salvare le condizioni del clima, della temperatura, degli ecosistemi che ci permettono di vivere nel mondo. Perché se alteriamo la temperatura di 1, 2, 3 gradi, la palla di roccia proprio tranquillissima, Ma noi, cosa capita a noi? Moriamo, capito? Quindi quando si dice salvare il mondo, si intende salvare la nostra vita, salvarci l'un l'altro. Si intende che in un certo senso siamo noi il mondo. Posto. Grazie mondo.
Grazie mille, grazie mille.
Thank you very much to the Cesenatico municipality for this last speech. To wrap up this panel, I would like to ask our guests and the municipality representatives to comment on what is a green town. Spillamberto. Today we are here in Bologna. We came in with an electric van. Spillamberto has an electric fleet. So our local municipality uses electric cars, and it's the first city which offered public transportation for free to all its students. We have a high percentage of separate waste collection. So some good examples that can be replicated by other small towns. Thank you. Misano. What is the main feature of a green town? First of all, responsibility in everyday action, in what we do at home, when we work, and in the cooperation between public and private. So it means we can contribute to save the world, to save the environment, and we have to, of course, pay attention and to care for nature. As Sara, Emilia-Romagna Faentina, in our opinion, and we showed it with our project, a green town is a city that can communicate, that can measure value. Best practices, of course, are useful. They must be implemented, but in the end, an area, an administration, a local entity need to be fully managed. So they require a management, and so they, of course, have to meet the needs of their citizens. So being transparent through an exchange, a communication, as for approaches that are explained in a simple way, because sustainable plans or other accesses, they are pretty clear, you know, to all the citizens. So this constant dialogue, this exchange can qualify a city as a green. Unione Savena Idice, from our point of view, it means growing, you know, being aware that these actions can lead to the area protection. Our community embraces several landscapes, from the hills to the mountains, and so for this union, the landscape, this territory, the life quality are strictly intertwined. And so the fact that the protection of all these aspects, of course, is implemented by these action plans. So in San Cassiani, in my opinion, we need to conjugate strategies with clear goals, with different actions, multi-level actions. So we have to measure maybe the different aspects, even in a digitized way, so that we can quickly react to the needs and integrate. We have to blend, you know, the two aspects. It's not all green on the one side and social. We have to merge them. Valentina Moltalti, Councillor of the Municipality of Cesenatico. I agree. In my opinion, a green town is aware of the needs of its inhabitants. For example, in the daily activity, or in our case, for example, sustainable tourism, but also sustainable mobility, waste management. So in implementing a set of actions that can be taken to protect the environment and a resilient town. So once obtained this awareness, the city, the town must understand how to adapt oneself to the climate change. So I would like to thank all the councillors, representatives of the municipalities, and I would like to remind you that our event will continue with the videos. Hope you can bear with us, because at 4 there are people here in the room, not many people, of course, due to the COVID restrictions, but we wanted to create a blended event, both online streaming and in presence. So thank you very much to all the participants. And then now we will see all the municipality videos starting from 4 p.m. The performance by Roberto Mercadini. So we are the soil, we are the earth. And at 4:30, the Panda Project performance. So the first by Cesenatico, the second by the Ravenna Municipality. Thank you very much.